Hello and welcome to the review of 2024 and what's going to be going on in 2025. Now, this is my second go at doing this video because I had a little microphone problem last week when I tried. I found that I'd muted my receiver, and that was a little bit annoying, but I'm back now. Bit worse for wear because we celebrated my birthday over the weekend, so lots of wine, Bœuf Bourguignon, and because of the time of year, a galette de roi, a king's cake, which is tradition here to eat on the last day of Christmas, although it's a little way after that. So, what we've got coming, that'll be later on in the video. For now, I'm going to talk about what happened last year. So I'm very lucky to have a friend called Adam, who you might have seen a little bit of in one of the videos from last year. He has a 3D printer and is a very nice chap, and he's been printing me off a few bits and pieces, one of which is the mount that this camera is in. I have a few mounts. I have one in the van to film me when I'm driving, and I have another one for a new harness I bought, so the idea is that I can film things with my hands free. But he also made me a shuttle, I think I'll call it a shuttle, something you slide something into, like on the old tape shuttles and servers and things. And that is for my Allpowers Power Pack. So I've done a few videos about that. But it's very useful because he's designed it himself. And after a few prototypes, we had a shuttle that would fit into the hole normally reserved for the car radio. You know, it makes it very useful for taking in and out. We spoke about the Allpowers Power Pack. Now, I was influenced, which happens sometimes on the internet, on YouTube, by a channel called Me and Mon Ami, which is run by two British blokes down on the French Riviera. And now, I know vaguely the French Riviera. It sounds really grand, but it's just that my father-in-law used to have an apartment in Antibes, and we went there once. So I've been there before, just one visit. But it's well worth watching their videos because they tour around the whole area in a Citroën Nouvelle Ami, and that is sans permis, like Mega Breadvan. So they do quite a few reviews about power banks, electric bikes, and all sorts of things that are electric, like the Nouvelle Ami. So I decided to buy myself a power station, but a small one, because it's like having a big one if you've got an electric car, because you can sort of like charge it up when you've got a bit of range anxiety and you don't know where you're going to charge up next. So it's quite useful for that. But obviously, Mega Breadvan is a diesel, so for me, it's more taking the pressure off the 12-volt battery to power auxiliary things like the Dashcam, the light, the carburide, and a speaker, because I've got an external speaker for the carburide, so it sounds better because the speaker in the carburide isn't very good. So for the minute, it sort of does take pressure off the 12-volt battery, but I also have it so when I'm driving, meaning I'm not taxing the battery too much, it actually charges the power station, and it actually keeps it topped up quite well with, if you're not using the headlights, a charge of around 20 to 30 watts, so it's quite good. So I'll do other videos about the power station. I need to do one about the carburide because I haven't done that yet. And I'm looking at actually getting it so it powers the carburide, because at the moment, because it has a cigarette lighter cable and no other sort of cable to power it, I'm actually running it off the 12-volt battery. But I like to be able to get an adapter to have a house plug on one end and the cigarette lighter female socket on the other to power up the carburetor. Some of the videos last year, and I think possibly the year before, were about me driving Mega Breadvan. Now, those of you new to the channel probably don't know that I haven't got a driver's licence. In the UK, where I'm originally from, I took about 30 lessons, and that was way back in 1991 in a Peugeot 205 diesel. It was brand new at the time. And well, it was a one-man band that was running the car, so it wasn't part of a driving school or anything. And I think that he was a little bit aggressive when I did something wrong. Added to the fact I was already nervous driving as it was. The result was that I never passed my test. And since then I've never had a driver's licence. In between 2005 2007, I had a 50cc scooter because I needed to get to my lessons in the nearest city to learn French and get around generally. And that is a essonne permis, which is in the same classment as Mega Breadvan, believe it or not, because it has, at the time it was a maximum speed of 50 kilometres an hour, and now it's 45. I bought Mega Breadvan in 2018 so that I could get about still. At the moment, I don't really go outside the village. I mainly go to the local Lidl to do shopping every week, weekly shopping, or to a park to go for a walk. I think the next thing for 2025 is that I really need to drive a bit further afield. But if you imagine that it's been, 30 years or so since I had driving tuition, and basically I've got behind the wheel and started driving because I can do that. I was born before 1988, so French rules say that you can drive one of these sans permis vehicles without any tuition. But anyone born after 1988 has to take what used to be called a BSR, or BSR in French, where you have a familiarisation course, you'd call it, where you have 8 hours of driving experience. It's not like driving lessons and a driving licence. Kids can drive these vehicles from 14 years old onwards, and they're especially popular now for teenagers because they're mostly electric, but they're also very, very expensive. So yeah, I'm going to have to branch out and drive further afield. To demonstrate my driving experience, there's a series of videos called Mega Breadvan Cam. And at first, there were more what other people were doing wrong. And I don't know, vehicles that I found interesting as I was driving around, or just situations. A little bit about me driving, but yeah, I make mistakes. And I hope to try to condense these videos down a little bit so things are a bit more relevant rather than just having situations which aren't really relevant to me driving, the standard of my driving, the standard of driving from other people. Probably cover a bit more of the French driving rules, the Code de la Route as it's called, or the highway code in English. So that's a future thing to do as well. So that's a bit about the van. Now on to other things. So in April, we went off to the UK, which we tend to do every year now. And we always rent the same place, which we've done with the gap for the pandemic since about 2016, I think. I'm originally from Leicester, and the place we rent is actually in Leicestershire, out in the sticks. We're surrounded by fields. It's a lovely place. It's our happy place, and it's nice to go out for walks and things. I do obscure videos, like last year I think I did one about the pheasants, because they always come by for breakfast, and they seem to be not tame, but they come up to the place we rent and have a little wander around. And because it's got big windows, you can see all of the wildlife. You can see the rabbits in the morning, you can see the pheasants, you can see the birds and so on. So it's very pretty. But sometimes we go for visits to other things, to see other things. One of the videos from last year was me visiting Leicester to see the electric buses. Now, I used to work for the bus company in Leicester many years ago, and so it's interesting to see these new developments where suddenly the government is sort of putting up a lot of money all around the country for these electric buses to be introduced. And so one of my videos was about the current state of play. At the moment in Leicester, you've got a franchise situation. I think this is sort of growing across the country. So it's sort of akin to the PTEs of old, back in the 70s and 80s, and passenger transport executives. So bus companies run on the franchise, so all the buses are the same colour, same network, and so on, which I'm a big fan of. Probably not everybody is, but it's just a way of making life easier for the passenger. So at the moment, electric buses are running on the park and ride services, which I used quite a lot. In fact, for that trip, I'd stayed on an extra week at a friend's while Madame MB and the kids went back to France. And so, although I didn't actually park a car at the park and ride, it was quite reasonable to go and use that because it was nearby and fairly cheap and rapid, because these park and ride routes have very few stops, unlike the local bus, which is not too far away as well. And so I used the electric Yutong buses run by Roberts Coaches into Leicester. And once in Leicester, there's a free service called the Hop, which is operated by some Yutong E9 minibuses, which do a circuitous route around the city centre. Last year I'd hurt my foot, I think when I got off either an RER train going into Paris to come over to the UK, or getting off the Eurostar, and so I was hobbling about now and then, dodgy ankle, and so I used the minibus around the centre quite a bit to get about, and I think the frequency is every 15 minutes or so it's a no-brainer really. And while I was there, they started to introduce double-decker electric buses. I didn't see that many because they were just new, they were brand new. There was just a few. So hopefully next year I'll see a few more. So if you want to look at what the electric buses were doing last year, then you can find the video about that. While I was staying with my friend, Nigel, I had a little look around his GoPod. So what's a GoPod? It's a sort of mini caravan. I think it's an alternative to having a tent, a more comfortable alternative, but it's okay if you're a certain size because it's quite small. So I did a video about that, and I think that was probably my best performing video of 2024. I did a quick tour around it. I know nothing about GoPods, I know nothing about caravans. I do watch a few van life videos on YouTube, but it was just basically me with a camera and saying what came into my mind. A bit like this, although I've got my little book here to help me with a few bullet points so that I know what to talk about. But like this, it was unscripted. But it was interesting. I'd be too tall to stay in a thing like that. I mean, you've got a pop top on it, so you can stand up in a certain part of the caravan. But I found the bed too small for me. I'm a 6-footer. But I was really impressed with it. Those of you who know this channel and have watched it for a bit will notice that we're often in a place called Brantome, which is sort of between Bordeaux and Limoges, south of Limoges, sort of like north-east of Bordeaux, near a city called Perigord, which gives its name for the region. It's called the Perigord, but it's actually in the Dordogne. Everybody knows the Dordogne if you're British, because lots of British people live in there. Probably not as much as it used to be, but it's still got a Britishness to it. So it was August. In France, August means putting up the big fermé sign and shutting down. for about 4 weeks. And July is a bit like that as well. But we took 3 weeks off and we spent 3 weeks down in Brantome. Out of the videos, we did visits to some brocantes and the local market. The intention was to go to a car show because last year I went to one at a place called the Montpont-Ménesterol, which you've probably never heard of. I hadn't heard of it either. But if you look at the video from last year, you'll see that there was an awful lot of cars there, a lot of classic cars. It was really quite good. Unfortunately, when I arrived, I wasn't very well. I think I got a heat stroke or something from travelling. That's another video I'll talk about in a minute. Travelling down there on the train. I spent about 2 or 3 days with a massive headache and fever. And so when I felt eventually better, I didn't really feel like, well, none of us felt like going to this car show, which was about an hour and a half's drive away, bearing in mind it was about 35 degrees on that day. The show itself in Montpont-Ménesterol is on a field. There's no trees. There's no shade. It would have been awful, even if the actual event is very good. So we found a smaller event just down the road. It was a brocante basically, but you had possibly 7 or 8 vehicles there. I think 2 of those were in the car park. So it was not what we were expecting. So I brought the video out with some visits around the market in Brantome, which is during the summer. I'm not sure what it's like off season, but on season during the summer, it's every Friday morning from around 8 o'clock in the morning till midday. And it's quite a big market, as you'll see if you watch the video. Well worth a visit. I also went to the brocante, which is held on a big park in Brantome called Le Grand Jardin. It's basically facing where we stay. And sometimes you can find some diecasts there, you know, some miniatures and so on of cars and such. And we walked all the way around this brocante and we came back to a store near where we'd started when we came in, and it was the only store selling miniature cars, model cars, mostly ex-magazine models, Editions Atlas and Altea and all those sorts of things. So I'm going a bit backwards here because I also did a video of my trip down to Brantome using my Navigo Easy Pass, and it was the first time I'd used it. And we have a local bus service here in our village, which started way back in early 2020, but I'd never used it. So I thought this is a good opportunity to use it because I worked out that I could take the bus and take the tram to the TGV station. Now, this was during the Olympics and I wanted to avoid going into Paris, and that was the way to do it, because basically I went round the outside of Paris. So the bus took me to a tram stop at a place called Bois-Briard, which is next to the main city around here called Évry. The bus actually goes to Évry. It's a very circuitous route. It's a bit long. It took about 20-25 minutes. Then the tram goes from there to Massy-Palaiseau, which is a TGV station on the line down to Bordeaux and eventually Toulouse, which starts in Montparnasse in Paris. And so I wasn't able to use my Navigo Easy on the tram, and that's what I talk about in the video basically. The last video, when we were in southwest France, was went to Cognac. Well, Cognac was our base because we wanted to go to the coast. Now, the coast round there is the Gironde estuary, which goes into, or comes out of, if you want to be more technical, Bordeaux. So we based ourselves in Cognac with the intention of going to a place called Talmont sur Gironde, and eventually to Royan. So I'll cover all of those places in the video. A visit to Talmont, which is very pretty, but at the height of the tourist season, it's also very busy. And then the following day, we did a tour of Cognac, so you'll see the old town if you have a look at that video, which is well worth a watch. Back to Mega Breadvan, there are going to be a few things that are going to need to be done, apart from the MOT, control technique and all that business. The horn doesn't work, that needs looking at. The warning buzzer for when you leave the headlights on, that doesn't work either. Basically, when you open the driver's side door, if you leave the lights on, there's a buzzer that sounds. It did work at one time, but it doesn't work anymore. So, a few electrical things. I keep asking, or Adam keeps asking me about doing a box for the fuse box, which when I bought the van, fuse box was just dangling from some wires behind the dashboard, bottom of the dashboard, so it's not very accessible. And since then, I've changed all of the fuses, and I've cleaned the contacts in what I call a chocolate box where all the fuses plug into, and the van actually worked a bit better than it did before, so obviously there was a problem. And in fact, there was one of the fuses that actually melted, so yeah, that's not ideal. So the idea is that Adam will 3D print me a box for the fuse box to go into, so it can be just accessible, so I'll just take the lid off and look at the fuses and take them out if I need to, rather than having to scrabble around underneath the dashboard. Other things are insulation, because obviously the noise. We've got I keep saying this every time, the insulation panels that go in the engine bay, which I bought probably about 4 years ago, never fitted them, never refitted them, because the other ones got destroyed. Flooring needs to be done, because when I go for a walk and it's muddy, I tend to wear my Crocs and then I change into my walking boots when I get to the park. So when I get back into my Crocs and it's muddy and I go to sit down in the cab, it's a case of slip sliding away, because it's just a plastic floor. There's no rubber, there's no floor mats or anything like that, so it's not ideal, and that could help with insulation as well. So there's lots of little things that need to be done on Mega Breadvan, and I think the next thing will be getting the front off so I can sort the horn out, and also check out the chassis or the subframe, which I painted some time ago. You'll find a video about that on the channel as well, just to see what the state is of it and if there's any more rust. So in April we'll be back to the UK again, back to Leicester. I'm not sure what I'm going to be videoing. No doubt the electric buses again, just to be consistent. I don't know, I'm sure we'll find things to visit to video, so watch this space. We'll have some stuff to do with our UK trip in April. As I mentioned earlier, I've got a Flickr page, so if you want to have a look at that, I'll put the link in the bottom. Basically, I'm putting my archive of transport photographs, cars, buses, lorries, all sorts. So I've got the Flickr page, the Buy Me a Coffee page, so if you wish to support the channel, please do so if you can. It will help me to continue to create content like this. It helps with equipment, because obviously I have to pay for all of that out of my own pocket. Any help is welcome, but you can also follow me for nothing, support me for nothing on Linktree. You'll find the link at the end of this video and also in the comments. So that's really, really much appreciated. On the Buy Me a Coffee page, before I forget, I said earlier that I was doing videos for it. I will do the occasional video, depending on if it's something significant, but in the main, it'll be like a blog. And some of the articles will be available for people who support me. Okay, so if you pay, now it's £1, it was €1, I changed it earlier this year to be more user-friendly for Brits out there, because according to my analytics, I'm getting more British and English-speaking people watching me, because I speak in English, I don't speak in French, than people here in France. So if you like to go along to the page and support me, you'll be able to see the blog posts intended for supporters, and usually about things behind the scenes. But I'll put up some blog posts to announce videos that are being released. But the videos will be released on the Buy Me a Coffee page a few days before they actually go out for everybody else. I'd like to do a shout out to a few other channels out there that I watch. You know, I don't watch a lot of channels, but in the main, strangely, I watch videos and channels that haven't really got a lot to do with some permy vehicles, probably a bit more to do with transport. So I've written down a nice little list here to help me. So a big shout out to Will's Whereabouts, Duncan Moody, Ros Ventures, Rick Murray, Planes, Trains and Everything, Mort's, Van Life Goodies, Me and Mon Ami, which I mentioned earlier, Patrick's Models and Trains, can't read my own writing. So Patrick's a great bloke down in Italy, half Scottish. I talk to him quite a bit. Grip and Rip, and Oot and a Boot. So those are the ones I tend to watch the most. Go and have a look at them. I'll put them down in the descriptions. To bring an end to the video, I was going to do a question and answer thing. And again, I've written them down on my piece of paper here, or my notebook. I didn't really have a lot of questions, but then again, it's all new because I've never done a question and answer before. So I really want to say I appreciate those who've made the effort to give me some questions to answer, and hopefully I'll try to answer them as much as I can. So from WhatsApp, someone said, I'm not going to name names, by the way, okay, I'm going to make this anonymous, but yeah. So when did you first develop an interest in continental Europe? Well, I'm not sure I have actually developed an interest in continental Europe. It's an interesting question. I suppose regarding France, I didn't really know a lot about the place apart from obviously taking French at school. I've always been a lover of the 2CV. You know, it's something it's been a constant. I think it's since I built a paper model of one from a book that I bought in book club when I was at primary school. And ever since, it was in my Observer's books. You remember those? The Observer's Book of Cars and the Observer's Book of Commercial Vehicles and all this sort of thing. My dad started me off with the Observer's Book of Aircraft from the 50s and 60s. And I used to read them, well, not read them, just look at the bits and pieces in them. And in the one about cars, you have the 2CV. And so I was like in awe of the 2CV. So that was one thing that got me interested in probably France. But I didn't intend living in France. It was never my intention. I was rubbish at French at school. I got a grade 4 CSE. I just wasn't interested until I met Madame MB, who is French. And that is my interest in continental Europe. I met a French girl. We sort of went back and forth for a year between Britain and France. And then I eventually moved here. So that's really my connection, and that's about it, really. So I hope that answers your question. On YouTube, I've had, what's the best and worst thing about living in France? The best thing has to be the food. Has to be the variety of places there are here to visit. We've had some great holidays over the years, and I've visited most places in France. I've been very, very lucky because when I lived in the UK, I was mostly visiting the Midlands or bits of Wales, well, the border country of Wales. So over in France, you can go on holiday and it can be so different if you choose different places to go to. And so that must be the best thing. The food, well, obviously I put on a lot of weight. When I was younger, I wasn't as rotund. So food, that has to be a thing. The lifestyle, I suppose. Long holidays in the summer, it's nice. The worst thing has to be the situations you find yourself in. Meaning that, obviously I arrived here not being able to speak French. With my grade 4 CSE French, it just wouldn't cut it. So the process of learning French, other people putting up with your bad French, wasn't very nice in my experience. There are some nice people out there. There were a few that were encouraging. But I think that people say, if you can speak the language, that's half the battle. No, I'm not okay about that, personally. I'm a shy person, so that doesn't really help. And it's different from one person to the other. People have different experiences depending on their situation when they move here, where they live in France. I happen to live in the Paris area. People can be a bit rude in the Paris area, just as there would be in London. Big city mentality. That has been one of the worst things, I think, for me, trying to adapt to speaking French, understanding other people, being on the same wavelength, which even to this day, I'm not always on the same wavelength. I think that even now, in some situations, I haven't found my place. I think that's the best way to describe it without upsetting anyone. I find it difficult to find my place in certain things. But we've made some great friends. I've got some great students. They're really nice people. From that point of view, we're very lucky. Another worst thing is administration. It's been pretty difficult to get through all of that. Me being a British bloke in France, and obviously with Brexit changed everything for us, because suddenly we didn't have the right to live here, and we had to go back to having what's called a carte de séjour, which is like a visa, and that's renewable every 10 years. Even though I've been here for 27 years, I've got to renew this thing in 10 years' time. As you've seen in a video back in 2022, we got married. That doesn't change anything regarding my status here in France at all. It's not like Britain. I have to still have my visa. We've got 2 children together, and you think that you get nationality, but you don't. You have to wait 4 years after the wedding before you ask for nationality. Well, I've got another year to go now, I think. So it'll be 2026. I'll be asking for French nationality. I'll be a dual nationality citizen, so I won't be a French person, I'll be French and British. So that's my intention, to make things more secure, more stable. And the fact that I've been here for so long, some of me is a bit French. I like French food, but a lot of me is also British. I'm not French enough for a lot of people, I think. I think that's a little problem, because in France, if you don't fit into a certain mould, it can be difficult, and I don't think I fit into that certain mould. I think that's the best way to describe it. I was home dad for quite a long time. I feel a bit mixed about it. I mean, it's good that the kids have stability because I was here, and it was a lot of hard work. People think it's just a walk in the park, and they think that I'm just skiving off doing stuff. And no, I had 2 kids to look after, and for some of that time I was actually working now and again on a magazine for the local Mary, and then I started teaching English as well when my daughter was very small. Basically, it's sod off to the people who think that I'm a scrounger, because there are those out there I think that. So what do you miss from the UK? That's a good question. That's also from YouTube. What do I miss from the UK? Strangely, not necessarily people. I'm not in contact with any family now. I don't think they know actually where I am. I haven't spoken to anyone. Well, I spoke to a few cousins, getting on for 7 or 8 years ago, I think. I wasn't in contact with them very much. I haven't spoken to my mum's brothers, for example, since she passed away 11 years ago now already. God, time flies by. So people, apart from a couple of friends who I'm still in contact with over there, who I knew when I lived there, not a lot really regarding relations. I miss the countryside, because here in the Essonne, there's no hedges, there's no rolling fields, it's all a bit flat. We're in a vale, so you've got some hills in the distance with sort of trees on them, but it's not Leicestershire. And so I miss Leicestershire, I miss the countryside in Leicestershire. That's one thing I miss. And then food. Now, I like French food. I love French food. I don't like all French food, but I like a lot of it. But I miss stupid things like Heinz tinned soup, pies, pucker pies. You can't get them here, obviously, because French people don't go in for pies, apart from in the east of France, where you got the tarte or Riesling, pork sort of like pie type thing. Pork pies, because they're from my region. Things like sausages and bacon, because it's not the same here, but we get by. We basically adapt, and we use the local ingredients to have something that approaches like a British cooked breakfast, or We do a shepherd's pie or Yorkshire pudding, toad in the hole, etc., etc. So just a few foodie things that I miss. Not that many, and they're not anything that's luxurious or anything. But when you find them in France on the odd occasion, they're very expensive. So we tend to stock up, and it lasts for months. I make it last for months. So yeah, food is one thing. I think that's about it really. And what would you change? That's another question from YouTube. I don't know. I really don't know what I'd change. I like to fit in more, but I don't think I do. But then again, people say to me, well, your British side is different and it's interesting. Some people don't look at it that way because they see me as probably a foreigner, in short. That's a big thing, I think. I don't think, in general, whether it's here or in Britain, people don't like foreigners. And I think that's a bit sad, actually, because I've been here for a long time. I make the effort to speak French. Admittedly, I don't speak enough French at home, but then again, I have to teach English, so I have to speak French to help people with their English. That's a big, big test, but it's something I'm particularly proud of because I've gone through the process of learning French, and now I have to teach people English, and they look scared. I mean, they look genuinely scared of learning English because it's talking to a complete stranger in a language that's not yours. That's the thing. And I can identify with that. So I'm 100% there to help them and support them. And in some cases, I think I'm a bit of a agony uncle or, I don't know, a counsellor, because some people in the past have shared personal problems with me. And it's great if they say it in English, but equally, I can understand. And it's good to have that relationship with people where you're helping them with a language or helping them because they've got a problem on their mind. And it's not my job to do that because I'm a teacher. I'm not a counsellor. I'm not a psychotherapist or anything, but maybe I should be. But I just enjoy helping these people who come for lessons morally and educationally. I really love doing that. Hopefully I managed to get this video in the can because I've had to do it in bits and pieces. I'll try to add some interesting bits and pieces onto it because it's me waffling essentially. But I'd like to thank you for, if you've got to the end, for watching it all, and thank you for your support, for your comments, and for generally being interested in me and Mega Breadvan and my life in France. So take care of yourselves and I'll see you again. Take care, bye.